Hello and welcome to the Eagle CAD tutorial for designing the Cherry MX Gamepad. So the first thing we want to do is actually download Eagle CAD. So if you go to the link in the description, you can find out there's many different options here. There is a free version. It's called the Express version. Of course, it is limited in terms of the routing area. So you get a routing area of 100 by 80 millimeters, which is well within the parameters for this project. Only 2 single layers and non-commercial, so it works for this project. And then the next thing we'll download is the Eagle library, the Adafruit Eagle CAD library, which has the feather, wing, and a wide assortment of different components. And then we'll also download the Cherry MX Eagle CAD library, which has the footprints for a wide assortment of different Cherry MX switches. So once you download those, you can download this by clicking on clone or download, and then clicking download zip. So download this to your desktop or wherever. You'll end up with these 2 library files. And then go into your Eagle installation wherever it resides. In this case, it's in the applications folder of my hard drive. And then there's a folder here called LBR, which is library. So we'll go inside there. These are all the libraries that come with Eagle CAD, and install our Adafruit and Cherry MX libraries. We just copy them and then paste them into the folder. So the next thing I'll do is launch Eagle. So let's launch it. And the first thing that opens up is this control panel. This just gives you easy access to some of the libraries, some of your project files. We don't have a project yet, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'll go up to File, New, and then I'll say Schematic. Before we create the board, we want to create the schematic, and this will just kind of lay out some of our connections. So this is the window that we get. We can make it a little bit bigger. Let me make it full screen. So I have a black screen here. If you have a white screen and you want it to be black, go under Options, User Interface, and then you have a wide assortment of different options. You can change different things, whatever you like. The next thing I like to do is to work within a grid. So to turn on the grid, there's a little button up here called Grid. If there's something that you don't know, just hover over it and it'll tell you what it is, tell you what the tool is. So the grid, I will say Display On, and the size of the units is 0.1 of an inch. You can change this to millimeters if you want, but I'm going to leave it on inch. Hit OK. Okay, so to move around in your projects, use the middle mouse button to click and drag to kind of pan around here. And then to zoom in or out, you just use your scroll wheel like that. And you'll see how I'm scrolling because the units are getting smaller. So the first thing we want to do is add our feather wing component. So to do that, I'll go to Window, Control Panel. And then when I open up the libraries thing, I can actually see that Adafruit has been added here, right there. I drop that down, and you can see all the components that are within the library. But we just want the feather wing. So scroll down, you see feather wing. Let me make this bigger. And you can see I have the feather wing here. It has all the proper labeling and GPIO, and it actually kind of looks like it in the schematic. And in the board, you can see it definitely looks like the feather wing. So I'm going to click on this Add button here. And as soon as I click on the Add button, you have this kind of object kind of moving around with my cursor. To place it down, all I have to do is use the left mouse button to click it in. And once I do that, it has all of the GPIO and labeling and stuff. So I will change my tool to the Move tool. Now, if I wanted to move this within the canvas, if I try to just move it like that, it won't let me. So I have to kind of find where the cursor is. And if you zoom in, you can see that there's a little crosshair here on the corner. And if I click on that, now I can move it around. So just kind of a FYI for moving things around. If something doesn't move, you have to click on the little crosshair. So there you go. Next thing I'm going to do is add our Cherry MX switches. So again, I'll go to our control panel and kind of look for the Cherry MX library, pop it open, and here I have 3 of them. There's one with LEDs, one with a diode, and then just a simple one. For this project, I'm just using the simple one. Again, I'll click on Add. And one thing to know is if you right-click before you place the object, you can kind of rotate it around just to get a better position. And if you see over here in the top left, you can see these are the different things you're switching through. Just a quick way to do it is the right click. So I'm actually going to lay out 6 of these. So I'm going to click, and then it's still here, so I'm going to create 6 of them. And you see as I place them, the U1 is kind of changing. That's just kind of like a a default name, but we can change those names here. So I'm at 5 and then 6. So if I click on this little info, this will let me kind of change some parameters, some properties really. So to change this one, for example, I can change the labeling from $1 to something like key_A, and just to kind of get a better sense of what these guys are going to be. Key S. This is basically going to be ASDW. So AS key D. This will be W. You don't have to do this, but I'm just doing it just kind of show you how you can kind of make this a little bit more, a little bit more sense. This will be key Z and then key X, like that. Okie dokie. So now what I want to do is I'm kind of jumbled up over here, so I want to move some things. Instead of moving each individual one, I can use this button over here, this tool called the Group tool. And what you do here is you just click and drag to make a selection, a marquee selection, like that. The objects will kind of glow a little bit brighter. I will then right click and then say move. But you don't want to do it that way. You actually want to go to your move tool, right click, and then say move group. So now I'm moving it. And for some reason, I somehow have a connection here, which is kind of funny. These connections were made somehow automatically when I placed it. So I'm going to use the delete feature to kind of delete these out because I don't want those there. Next thing I want to do is I actually want to make it easier. So all these buttons are going to be wired into one button, one GPIO. That's how it's going to be wired. And then all the buttons are going to connect to ground. So I could draw connections all to ground, but that's going to get really messy. So one way to kind of clean that up is to add something called a ground object or a ground symbol. So to do that, there's a much easier way instead of digging through it in the library. I'm going to click on this add button here, which is next to the delete thing. So I'm going to click on add. A new window is going to pop up, and then I can actually search now through the default libraries here. So I'm going to type in GND for ground, hit enter, and then I can select one of these guys. I'm going to select this one, hit OK, and now I will drop these kind of down here for each button. So 6 of them, and then 1 for the ground pin on the feather, like that. Okay, so now we have all of our components. This is a good time to save, so I'm going to save it to my sort of project file here. I'll call it Cherry Toot. Okay, so now I need to make some connections. So to do that, I'm going to use this tool here called Wire. So click on that. Up here in the top, you can see that there's some options. You can change the radius. You can change the style of the wire. This right here, this drop down is just all the layers that are pertaining to them. For now, all we really need to do is focus on this layer here, the nets. And that's kind of it. The width doesn't matter in this case because these aren't actual traces. These are just kind of wires that are referenced in the schematic. So that's all done there. Now I'm going to connect all these switches to the ground. So if you look at it, you can see that there's SW1, SW2. So all of these, the Cherry MXs, they have 2 pins. It doesn't matter which one is ground, but in my case, I'm just going to make ground 2, or make switch 2 ground for all of these buttons just to be consistent. And then switch 1 will go into the actual GPIOs. So let's go ahead and connect these. So to connect these, you actually kind of need to do it on tip to tip. So you see this little tip here of this line. I'm going to click on that, and then I will click again, but on the tip of the ground here, not over here or in here, but like right there. And then what I'll do is I'll switch my tool to the move tool, and if I move this, now you can see that the green wire is kind of bending to wherever the position is. So this is telling me that there's a solid connection. So let's go ahead and do the next ones. So again, tip to tip, like that. And then I will hit escape to just kind of get rid of this because I need to start a new line. So you just hit the escape key. Escape, connect the next one. I'll drag again using the middle mouse button. Click, escape. Okay, cool. So all those are grounded. And now I will ground to ground on the feather, like that. Okay, looking good. Now, if I start making my signals, I'm going to kind of run into a little bit of a mess here. So what I'll do is I'll move these guys again. the group is already selected here. It kind of remembered it. So I'll go back to move and then say move group. And then just kind of move these up a little bit. And I need to make a new, I need to move these grounds a little bit. So I'm going to, again, do that. Right click, move group, and then just kind of move them this way. Cool. All right, so now I have enough room for kind of connecting these GPIOs to the switches. So let's do that. I'll again switch to the wire. And then I'll connect switch 1 to, let's say, GPIO 13. Like that. Hit escape. The next one, the key S, will go to pin 24, which is GPIO 12. Hit escape. Next one. So on and so forth. That's pretty simple. Okay. And then again, if I move my my component, my feather wing, you can see that it's all the wires are kind of bending with it. So this looks good. Very, very simple project. We really don't need any other components other than the switches and the feather wing and, of course, the ground. So that's it for the schematic. I'll go ahead and save that. And the next thing we want to do is start kind of laying out the components visually for our PCB. So to do that, we need to create a board. And over here in the top where my cursor is, there's a button over here that switches between the board and the schematic. In this case, it says generate. So we haven't made one yet, so just click it. It'll say, do you want to generate a board using the schematic? And I say yes. We get a new window. I'll double click it to make it big. So these are here. These objects right here are obviously our components. And this big square over here is actually a 100 millimeter by 80 millimeter board. So Eagle's nice enough to kind of lay this out and kind of give you an idea of what your board limit is. And we're kind of there. We could add a couple more buttons, but we kind of are limited here, especially since it's the free version. Now, if I start moving these guys, if I don't put it inside the square, Eagle CAD will be like, hey, this isn't, this is outside of the board area, so you have to kind of move it in there. And so I'll just move that there, or actually undo it and move the whole group. One thing I want to do is, of course, turn on the grid, because it's off again, so I'm going to turn it on. And now I have a better idea of kind of where the components can be laid. So I'll make a new group here, select all these guys, and then right click, say move group. And what I actually want to do is make the corner of the feather wing be on the corner of our PCB. So I'm just going to move it like that. Now this is kind of a nice layout, but I kind of want it to look like a gamepad, so I want that kind of iconic up, down, left, right arrows, and then these two buttons over here on the side. So I'm going to move these around individually. So I'm going to start with, you can see these, okay, so these green circles are the pads, the solder pads that will make the connections. So you can see that there's quite a few of them. And then the yellow wires are called air wires. These are kind of a visual indicator to show you what's referenced in the schematic. So I'm going to move these things around. And what I want to do is I kind of want to make sense of these. So say this button over here is connected to kind of the far right GPIO over here. So I'm going to move this all the way to the right. And then this one comes over here. So this one will be kind of next to that one. And then this guy over here should probably be more over here. Let's make this one the down key. This one will be the up arrow key. And this is the right. So there you go. I'm just kind of trying to make the same amount of padding here. I don't want them to be completely touching each other, because then I won't have, they'll kind of, the keycaps themselves will kind of be intersecting with each other. So that's why I have these sort of two units here as padding. So now I kind of want to move these around again using the group. I'll make a new group like that. Right click, move group. And looks like I didn't select them all. So let's do it again. Whoops, undo that. Maybe go more this way. There you go. Again, right click and move group. So I'll make sure that these are kind of lined up with each other. And that looks pretty good there. Okay, so now that we have our stuff kind of positioned where we want, I probably want to move these a little bit more closer to the board. but not too close because there's actually a JST connector right here, and I kind of need a little bit of clearance here so I can actually plug it in. I don't want these to intersect, so I'll make a new group and just kind of move all of the buttons now, all 6 of them, like that. You can see that they get brighter, giving you a visual indication like, hey, those are the ones I'm going to move. So I'm going to move group. I'll probably move it something like right over here. Yeah, looks good. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is kind of figure out this layout, this outline of the board. So the outline of the board right now, it is 100 by 80, but I don't need all of that area, especially right here. I really don't need all this area, so I'm actually kind of create a new shape. So I'm going to use the wire tool to do so. We're not going to create wires, we're just kind of creating the outline. So up here where it says 16 bottom, that's actually the layer. I want to change this to layer 20, which is the dimensions layer. And anything on this layer, any drawing, is basically the outline of our board. So it could be a circle or a square, anything like that, any kind of interesting shape. But in this time, I'm just going to make kind of like a shape like that. So let me delete these first, actually. Delete these guys. Just by doing that, by clicking on the line itself that I want to delete. And then I'll go back into the wire. And there's obviously some other options here like radius and things, width. By default, it's fine. So I'm going to start off by clicking on the cursor here at the bottom, the lower left. And then here's the kind of shape that I want to make, something like this. There we go. Looks good. Hit escape. Looks good. If we want to fine tune anything, we can use the move key, and you can move corners, which is something you can do. But if you want to move like a whole line, just click kind of in the center of the line, and now you can move kind of that whole line there. So that's kind of neat. And next thing I'll do, I'll probably move this down here so it's flush with that. Okay. Next thing I want to do is actually save this out. Just always good to save. Now I can actually start routing things out. So to route these, we're not going to use the wire tool. We're actually going to use the route tool. And this one has a couple different options like radius and diameter and the width. I'm actually going to change the width from 0.016 to 0.024 just to make it a little bit thicker. And I'm going to change the layer from top to actual bottom. So you could make a double-sided board, but in this case, since I am milling it on the other mill, I just want one-sided board. So I'll be working all within the bottom of the board. So the first thing I want to do is probably connect all of the ground connections together. So I'll zoom in. You can see the little pads have little labels on them, so I know what's ground and what's switch 1 and 2. So that's good. So I'm going to connect all these sort of air wires. So these yellow lines are actually representations of what's wired in the schematic. So this just kind of gives you a visual of where things are. So I'm going to start clicking here, click again, and now I am drawing out a trace. So you can right click again to kind of make your different styles. I just want a straight line. So I'm going to connect this to this ground. And as soon as I click that, the yellow wire kind of disappeared because now it is a solid connection. You can see that the blue wire now has a little GND, which tells us what the signal is. So let's do one over here for that guy. And then we're just going to make really simple connections, just kind of get this laid out. Over here and over there. Okay. And now we need to connect the ground of the feather wing to one of these buttons in the closest proximity, which is probably this one. So I'll just click straight down like that. All right. So now that we have all our grounds connected, we want to start with our switches going into the GPIO. Now, if you notice, if I were to draw right here to here, I'm actually crossing these, and that's really bad because when you mill this out or you have this fabricated, you're basically bridging the connection, so that's bad. So we need to kind of come up with a different solution for this ground. So instead of just going straight down, I'm actually gonna. So I tried to delete it just now. You don't want to do that. You actually want to use this button called Rip Up. And this will just kind of remove that trace, but maintain the air wire, which is what we want. Okay. So let me go back to the route and then kind of work my way. I'm going to change this to a different, probably this one here. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of come out this way. And I like that the yellow wire is kind of moving along with where I'm going to drop this, which is awesome. So now I'll probably go somewhere like that and then down. So there we go. So now I have kind of eliminated that issue. All right, so let's start with switch 1. I'm going to come down here. See if I can, nope. I don't want to cross this circle because this is actually a cutout. So this is a cutout for the Cherry MX switch. I'm going to go over here, something like that. If you want to maintain your 45-degree wires, you can totally do so, but for this it kind of doesn't matter. So this one will kind of come out this way. You can be as artistic or as clean as you want with these. And then now you'll see that I kind of can't get in between here, so I need to kind of rip up this ground and kind of ground these guys on the outside here like that. So let's do that. Like that. Now we have a path for our kind of S or W key. So I'll go back to the route, kind of come out this way. Okay, we'll do the next one. Alrighty, and then we have the last two over here. Looks like I hit the wrong one. Let me undo that. Okie dokie. And this one here. All right, so if I zoom out, just to get a better look of everything, you can see that all of our air wires have disappeared. Those were the yellow wires. They're all disappeared because we kind of have a nice connection. And you can be as kind of clever as you want with these, artistic. So let's say I wanted to make a curvy version of this. We can do that using kind of these curvy lines here. So you can be you can be as kind of crazy as you want with these because it kind of doesn't matter because these are just simple signals. There really doesn't matter. There isn't much current going through these at all. So you can be as artistic as you want with these. Just kind of neat. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And at this point, we can kind of start referencing, rendering this out to see if it's actually going to work. So in my case, I'm going to mill this out on the Othermill. So using Otherplan, which is the software that the Othermill comes with, I can get a visual representation of if this is going to look good or not. So I'm going to go Open File, and then select the Cherry tutorial. And now we can see what our traces look like. And if we zoom in, you'll see that there's kind of a problem here. The feather wing has this outline, and this is basically telling our CAM software, hey, we want to cut this out. And that's going to mess up all of our connections. So what we want to do is we kind of want to change that feather wing out for one that doesn't have an outline. So thankfully, it kind of already has one within the library. So there's this tool over here called Replace. And this will let us replace a component with another one. So it opens up the window, kind of like the library or the add. And I'm going to delete the search term. And then I'll pull up the Adafruit library, which is probably up here. And then scroll down to the feather wing, which is right here. And now you can see that there's one called No Dim. And if you look at the top right corner here, you can see that that's what we have. And if I go to this one, it kind of disappears. So we should have used this one first, but this was more of a on-purpose mistake to show you how to replace components. So I'll click on OK. And now what I have to do is click on the object that I want to replace. So it's going to be this guy over here, obviously. So when I click it, it doesn't look like much change because you still have an outline, but it's no longer on the layer that's telling the CAM software to be a cutout. So I'll hit Save, and back into Eagle, or back into Otherplan, I'll hit Refresh, and now our CAM software knows, hey, this is not an outline that we want to mill out. And obviously I can change the milling tool to kind of be finer because some of these red lines mean that it's kind of bad. And actually one thing is that you see these extra holes here. So if I go to Eagle, you see these extra P3 and P4 for all these switches. My Cherry MX switch, the kind of type that I got, doesn't actually need them. They don't have these little standoffs that would kind of go in here. You just have the center standoff that goes into this hole, and it just has these 2 pins. So I actually don't need these. So I'm going to delete them and modify the object. So inside of our control panel, in the Cherry MX, I will right click on that, hit open in library. It opens it in this window. And where it says package Cherry MX, I'll right click on that and hit edit package. Now this will open in the window where I can kind of modify some of these things. So I don't want to move anything, I just want to delete P3 and P4. So to do that, I'll hit the delete and then just kind of click on those objects. And that's it. That's all I want to kind of change. So I'll hit save, close that out, and then back into the board, I actually need to update them. So under library, I'll hit update all. And it says, hey, this board has been updated. So I'll hit OK. And now all of those holes are gone. So now that kind of alleviates some of the problems that we had that we saw when we were milling. So I'll go ahead and refresh this. And I probably didn't save the board, so let me save that. And then refresh. And there we go. We have one nice little curve. That's kind of cool. So obviously you can kind of, I like to kind of move this over here, kind of just to show you a little bit. And another thing is I kind of don't like these sharp edges. So one easy way to round these edges off, the corners of the PCB, there's this button called miter. So I click on that, give it a radius. In this case, I want 0.1 of an inch, and just click on the corners, and you can round them off. That's really neat. Like that. I'll even do these 2 at the bottom here. Hit save. The next thing I want to do is I actually want to make more mounting holes for the corners here, so I can mount this to a 3D printed enclosure. There is a hole button. It's a hole tool. This will make little holes. By default, the drill size is 0.02, which is way too small. So I'm going to change this to 0.1. And that's actually the same mounting hole size for an M25 screw or a 440 screw. And it's kind of the same size as the feather, the holes on the feather wing. So I'm just going to add some here in the corners just by clicking them in like that. And that is it. I'll hit save. So if I bring it back into other plan and refresh, you can see now we have some nice rounded edges and some mounting holes. Very lovely. Now obviously if you do not plan to mill this out of the Othermill, you can use a service like Oshpark. So let's go to oshpark.com. I already have an account. Click on the Get Started button, and then you can upload your Eagle board straight to here, and it'll actually render it out for you, essentially giving you an idea of how your board will look like. So give it a second. It'll update, or upload rather. It also supports KiCad and a zip file, Gerber files, but hey, it has built-in Eagle support, so it works great for us. All right, so it's done, and there's some design notes. It's basically saying, hey, your project doesn't contain a bottom silkscreen. If you want to make some silkscreen graphics, you're totally free to do so. I won't be doing that for this project since I'm milling it out, but you can feel free to do that. I'll hit continue, and then this gives us a breakdown of all the layers of our board, just to give you a reference of what it's going to look like, all the holes, all the copper plating, bottom layer, top solder mask, the silk screen, your outline of the board. That's looking pretty good. So if you like what you see, you can order it. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit pricey. The minimum quantity is 3, and that's going to be about about $50. So not too bad. And it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get. But if you do have access to the Othermill, let's say your makerspace has one or your classroom, this is a great way to do it, because then you can start milling right away. The circuit boards themselves, the FR1 single-sided boards, are just $11 for a pack of 10, which is awesome. And you can mill it in literally like 10 minutes, which is really cool. But that's basically it. So we went through the interface, we added our schematic, we modified some of the library components, and we created a very, very simple board. I think this is a great project to get started with Eagle CAD. if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know in the comments. And if you want to see some more, or if you want to see a more in-depth tutorial, I definitely recommend checking out Jeremy Blum's Eagle CAD tutorial. That's how I learned, and I definitely recommend it. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. In the next tutorial, we'll draw out all the components in Fusion 360 and 3D print our enclosure. So until next time, I will see you in the next one.